In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at some surprisingly cold models moving forward into the late February, early March timeframe. I'm willing to admit there's a chance that I was wrong in kind of predicting the warmer temperatures, or at least the extent of the warmth that I was anticipating for the end of February into the beginning of March. And I'm only willing to admit that I might be wrong at this point because it's not definitive. We're going to kind of look at it, and there's going to be warmer and colder times. There's also colder and warmer models, but there's no denying that they are trending towards a colder look for this specific time range of the final week of February into, let's call it, the first 10 days of March. With this will also come snowfall opportunities on the models, so a little bit snowier than what I was predicting as well, with a couple of opportunities for the southeast, mid-Atlantic, and northeast. We're going to be diving into this. So let's take a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, and this is going to be for the 23rd through 27th. What we see is a little bit of cold hanging on here to the southeast. This warmth on this outlook is pushing eastward. This is the same outlook that we looked at in yesterday's video. Because I'm making this video a little bit earlier, the newer one has not come out for the February 18th. So this is for the 17th. This was issued on the 17th. Today I'm recording this on the 18th. So this is one day outdated. And I wouldn't be surprised if this looks a little bit colder just because of the model guidance that has come in. The precipitation does look quite dry, especially in this area. Through the south, we're basically shutting this down. And what we're seeing is a lot of these northern jet stream storms moving through the northwest and north central states, and a few of these far suppressed storms moving nearby Florida. Near normal kind of chances in the northeast there. For the 8th through the 14th day outlook, this will be for the 25th through 3rd of March. We do see they have moved in that direction of warmer temperatures reaching the eastern seaboard, but they're not very confident in it. We have the lightest shade there and a lot of near normal popping up here near the east coast. The warmest conditions being over the central and southwestern states, which could still encourage from time to time colder air moving into the east, and that's kind of what I'm seeing from the models. Precipitation here does begin to increase for a lot more areas as we see storms diving down the Rockies. Still this kind of northern track as well, moving across the nation, and possibly even some storms trying to originate here in the south central states. And they do have a near normal chance in the southeast. With this type of a look, wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit above average, as long as everything kind of goes this way. The southwest still kind of just shut down though. When we look at the past 15 days, this will be the 3rd through the 18th of February. In 2 days, we'll look at the 20-day period, and we'll actually get a better idea of what February has been like. But we can see that this cold from Canada is expanding into a lot of the central states, the Midwest and Great Lakes, even a little bit of the Northeast as well here. And I expect this to kind of continue to push back this warmth to where we might even end up with none of it, or it might be very suppressed to the south once we're looking at the end of February timeframe. There's no denying that from start to now, the February has just gotten colder and colder and colder. We had a very warm start, and it looked like maybe winter's kind of coming to an end early, but it's really, really rebounded here as of late. The European model, let's just take a look at it. Basically for tomorrow's storm, starting kind of in the morning to afternoon time frame for a lot of Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia areas. That storm still is about the same on these models, the European model being further south, looking like a bullseye for maybe even northeastern North Carolina, whereas the GFS model has that bullseye for southeastern Virginia, maybe 25, 50 miles further north. No huge discrepancies. It's kind of looking like it's going to be in that area. But the kind of rain snow line and the temperature gradient looks a lot different between those. The reason why the GFS has that bullseye further north is because that rain and sleet mixes in further north than what the European model shows. So much so that the GFS model shows almost no snowfall, where the European model has the bullseye. So it is, even though it's not a huge distance difference, it is a massive, massive outcome difference. So we'll be kind of focusing in on that, as well as some other features in the upcoming pattern, of course. And let's just move this forward. I want to take us straight towards tomorrow afternoon, and this is 1 p.m., Wednesday the 19th, and what we see is snow beginning in a light to moderate fashion for a lot of Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Ohio, West Virginia, maybe far southern Maryland here. northern North Carolina as well. Already seeing some snowfall by 1 p.m. Some areas in the west had started earlier than this even. And what we see by 4 p.m. is the heavier stuff starts to get going. And this is a pretty critical time. Our low was over the Gulf. It moves over Florida and then redevelops off the southeast. And that going over the land can cause a little bit of weakening for a brief minute. And that's why we get a little bit lighter for the early afternoon. But as it redevelops off the southeast, we do expect intensification. And that's when the heavier stuff is going to pick up. So that's why we see like 4, 7, 10 p.m. as kind of the peak for the heaviest snowfall here with this storm. So we see it picking up for northern North Carolina into southeastern Virginia. Let's move this forward a little bit. And here we go towards 7 p.m. getting even heavier. Again, especially in northeastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia. Guys, my vlog is going to be epic for this one. I don't know how long it'll be until I see another snowstorm like this. So be sure to check out that channel. It's on the top right corner of your screen, the description, and the pinned comment down below. We had a January vlog that we put out a month ago where we did have a lot of snow. You can check that one out for now. But be sure to subscribe to that and hit the notification bell on that channel, because this February vlog is going to be highly revolving around this massive snowstorm that I'm going to be seeing for my area that might be a top 2, top 3 snowstorm I've seen in my local area in my life. So it's going to be a huge, huge thing for me. Be sure to check it out. Subscribe to that channel. The support means a whole lot. Let's take a look at 10 p.m. We're still in that very heavy look for northeastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia. And even as we move towards 1 a.m., it's still basically the same thing. Now, the peak low pressure is here, but really when we look at these rings, what we see is that a lot of the, sub 1010 millibar pressure is going to be in this whole area. So the low pressure is very broad. It's not just all way out here. There's a lot of it really close here. That's why we're seeing a lot of precipitation in here. Sometimes these L's can be a little bit confusing because it's just over the very, very lowest pressure that the model is picking up, the center of low pressure as we call it. But when you have a lot of low pressure in all of these areas, if we were to find the kind of average center of the low pressure, it would be a lot closer to the middle with all of that low pressure spread around. So felt like mentioning that. 4 a.m. still a kind of moderate snowfall happening. And again, our low shifts westward as the lowest center of pressure becomes further towards the west. So again, that low pressure is closer to the coast than that previous graphic looked. As we continue on towards 7 a.m., that snowfall is kind of coming to an end for North Carolina and Virginia. This low is moving away by this point. We do have quite a bit of snow showers in this area with the upper level low, which is much further inland. And that's going to kind of swing over the area as well, maybe bringing an extra half inch of snowfall on top of everything. So we'll see that happen here. It is 10 a.m. Thursday, 1 p.m. Thursday, and we see it kind of moving in, coming to an end by about 4 p.m. there, but there is some flurries and snow showers going on in this corridor, kind of from the morning time to midday Thursday. Worth noting there. We do enter into a little bit of a quieter pattern here for Friday. It's just very, very cold in the east. Saturday, same thing. Let's see, the next storm threat really for areas in the east. I mean, we have kind of continuous storminess in the northwest as we get oftentimes. So snowfall for the mountains, rainfall for the lower elevations. Really the most synoptic snowstorm possibility that I see is going to be this area here, this clipper that wants to move down. And this will pose a threat to the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast, maybe even as low as the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic. So let's just watch this play out. This is, again, for Sunday the 23rd right here. Here's Monday the 24th, and it's not looking to pan out on this model, but again, it will pose a threat if that cold digs a little deeper. We could have some snowfall coming from this. We do get another storm system moving through the Rockies, again, bringing heavy snowfall there to the mountains by Tuesday on the 25th, and this swings down underneath the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes. We end up with the Great Lakes seeing quite a bit of snowfall from this one, specifically northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and then into southern Michigan. But these Midwest and Great Lakes storms have been really, really hard to track this year. So don't be surprised if this changes quite a bit. I want to backtrack us actually a little bit because at a certain point here, Wednesday, we do see a very intense area of a cold front here setting up. We have this surging warmth out ahead of it. And as you guys know, that kind of sets us up for some potential thunderstorms and severe weather So I anticipate that by Wednesday the 26th, that it could be what we're looking for the deep south. And by the time we reach towards Thursday afternoon, a lot of that thunderstorm activity is now for the southeast, as our low is located somewhere over eastern Kentucky. Cold air is diving in behind all of this. Very intense look. And afterwards, we see the storm swing around. It wants to do something weird here with like an inverted trough. And what we see is the cold air is able to swing underneath enough to where we do eventually switch over to snowfall for the interior areas as of now. This is 10 days out, so this could change a lot. And honestly, this isn't the strongest look for a snowstorm I've ever seen. You know, when you have the rain and then it kind of cools down with the system lagging behind and then switching over to snow, that is a lot of things that could just change very slightly, and it completely changes the outcome of potential snowfall. So that has me very, very skeptical, and this looks like a very fragile system, it looking in the medium to long range, where, you know, small changes could completely shift this to a not so snowy storm. So, you know, the long range is already pretty skeptical, and this is just adding some extra oomph to that. So kind of really, really hard to call that a, you know, it's a signal, but it is a fragile one. We do get this kind of underneath storm for Oklahoma, Texas, a little bit similar to our one that we're seeing now. It's more north based and it has a more northward trajectory, it looks like. So let's watch what happens with this Sunday the 2nd, Monday the 3rd into the Ohio Valley. And yeah, a little bit more of a mid-Atlantic, but that's a very minor snowstorm. We do get a more major kind of deep south storm that develops here near Mississippi. We get thunderstorms behind all of this for Texas and Louisiana. Tuesday the 4th, again, very far out, 336 is how many hours out this is. So that is a very, very far out projection. This has a really good chance to change a lot, but if anything, it kind of points towards these major storms in the south that could bring thunderstorms. Don't pay too much to the specifics, as I always say, though. We do see this kind of end up over the mid-Atlantic. And again, a pretty fragile snowstorm where we have this mixing and it's all kind of to the north and west here. This seems more like a transient snow threat, which means it's not really moving like directly northward. Like the snow's not going to do exactly this. It's kind of like swinging through. And as you can imagine, if this is the distance that you see snow, you start with this front end and you end with this. It's a lot shorter than if you start with this and end with this. So that could limit the snow threat. And we do see it's at the end, but it does kind of like move through a little bit transient. It's not perfect, but it is kind of sliding to the east. And we get heavy rainfall here as well. But again, specifics don't matter too much. This just kind of indicates we could see some major low pressure systems in the deep south moving into the east during early March. It is worth noting we have warmer temperatures over the west and deep diving cold air moving towards the east after this storm is moving out. So again, kind of feeling like it's looking a little colder in the long range here. GFS model, again, for today's storm, we see everything timing wise is almost identical. 10 a.m. some light snow is moving in. 1 p.m. we get a little bit heavier snow, so maybe an earlier start here from the GFS model, I would say, versus the European. And also, look, we get the heavy snowfall. Looks almost identical at 4 p.m. But then by 7 p.m., what's different is this mixing is way up into northeast North Carolina. Heavy snowfall mostly for north central North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. And that mixing even comes into a little bit of southeast Virginia here, which would limit snowfall totals. I mean, we have rain and freezing rain for northeast North Carolina by this point, 10 p.m. on Wednesday. That could have the potential to wash away most of the snow accumulation. So we're talking such a huge difference. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the distance isn't that different. What is very different is that warm nose that's able to kind of climb up that coastline as it's moving in. And the difference could be like, 2 to 4 inches for northeast North Carolina on this GFS model versus like 6, 8, 10 on the European model. So we are talking a huge outcome difference between these two models, which makes it really complicated. We're within 24 hours of the snow starting. Very, very difficult. And we see that kind of just continues through the end of the storm. And then again, Thursday, this is 10 a.m. We see snow showers moving into the basically entire mid-Atlantic area. 1 p.m., same thing. 4 p.m., they're still around. even by 7 p.m. on this model. So on the GFS, we could pick up maybe an extra 1 or 2 inches during the day on Thursday for a lot of these areas. Just depends. Again, quieter for a while. We do get a little bit of a connection with this system I've been watching for the 23rd, a little bit where this storm wants to move up near the coast, and we get some light to moderate snowfall in the mid-Atlantic again as soon as this upcoming Sunday. Nothing major as of right now, but it is a little bit of a signal to watch. We get a much heavier snowfall event in the Northeast for the 25th here versus the European model, especially in the Northeast here, New York and New England, where we do pick up maybe some plowable snowfall amounts, especially in mountainous and hilly areas. Let's keep going. I want to take us towards really where we start to see more action. Again, we get this kind of deep diving, kind of Rocky Mountain, straight down into the lower Midwest, and then back up in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. This storm is a lot more major here on this particular model. What's interesting is we have our primary low over the area seeing snowfall, but there's just enough cold air to where we're seeing heavy snowfall for parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here. Definitely could be interesting to track, but again, we're nearly 10 days out, which makes me a little skeptical, and we have deep diving cold air with that around the 27th, 28th, 29th. We even get a little clipper system there through the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast around March 1st, March 2nd timeframe. And then here we go. Monday, March 3rd, we get another kind of deeper south snowfall event. Very, very far out, so definitely take it with a grain of salt, but another winter storm. And look at how similar this is to this upcoming one around March 3rd, March 4th. I know you guys up north would be losing your mind if the south got another major snowstorm. The good thing is it's 318 hours out, so the odds of this being completely correct are extremely, extremely low. But again, we're watching for major low pressure systems from the deep south moving into the east, kind of southeast area on both models here in the long range, and that is a takeaway that we can really, really find accurate resolutions in. We have both models in agreement for major low pressure systems. That could bring numerous types of impacts, and it's hard to pin down until you're, within at least 240 hours. So it's just something to watch for now, that time frame for some major storm systems, whether that's snow, thunderstorms, severe weather, whatever it may be. Definitely interesting, though, for that southern mid-Atlantic area to get another massive storm. And then this is kind of what we're left with on the 6th. I see this so much where the end of the model run is just very zonal. Typically, it doesn't end up this way, actually, but we see just kind of a straight west to east jet stream. And this brings precipitation really quickly moving from area to area here, but nothing sticks around too long when we have this very quick moving zonal jet stream. So very neutral temperatures, maybe a little bit above normal for most areas. Pretty interesting, but typically this kind of evolves into something else by the time we're actually getting there. So we'll see what happens. Total precipitation is kind of on the increase in the east again. We're watching for these storm systems moving through these areas even in the long range. So if that's the case, we will continue to increase these precipitation amounts on the European model likely. Also, the Northwest looks quite decent as well. When we look at the anomalies, we're starting to pick up some above average areas here for the upcoming 2 weeks. So again, on the upswing. The total snowfall on the European model, again, further south, we get the Rockies, the Sierra Nevada, the Cascade mountain ranges getting decent amounts. The plains and Midwest, we really don't end up with a whole lot, but this area is so tough to predict this year. We do end up with a lot of Great Lakes and interior Northeast snowfall, and then we've seen that all season, so that's almost a guarantee. And then here's your actual snowstorm that we're tracking right now. A lot of the plains, Midwest, some of the southern Ohio Valley, and then some of the southern mid-Atlantic end up with quite a lot of snowfall from that system. I want to go ahead and zoom us in. We'll take a look at just the east here, and what we end up seeing is quite a handful of snowfall here. Again, the European model, we see 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 inches there for Northeast North Carolina, and still, 6 to 10 inches for Southeast Virginia. When we look at the GFS model here, we're going to see big differences. First off, this is with both storms for the east. Keep that in mind. So this is a largely increased amount versus what we're expecting to see with just this single snowstorm coming up. So I will backtrack this in a minute, but for the full run, we end up with a lot more actually for the mountainous west than the European model showed. A little bit more south actually for these areas. Let me see if we actually, Yeah, okay, so that's not from today's snowstorm. We actually get more there for that, even that kind of like plains area. So this is just for our upcoming storm. We see similar areas out west here getting snowfall, but again, a little bit further north here with the snowfall for northern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. Bull Run, I mean, we end up with historic amounts in these areas, 1 to 2 feet with both storms combined. So equally large snowstorms. Again, very unlikely that we specifically see that second one pan out exactly this way. So we're going to backtrack it and lose that storm that just happened on the back end and zoom us into the east again. And here's what we end up with. Similar amounts. I mean, we're talking likely close to 10 inches, maybe upwards of 12, just slightly north. Again, we see the areas, it looks like these actually are coming in with quite large totals, but with the amount of sleet that we see mixing in, even rain and freezing rain, what this model isn't taking into account is any melting happening after that snowfall has come down. It's actually not even accounting for accumulation. This is just the snow that fell out of the sky. So anything such as melting when it's first falling, or sleet coming after you've gotten accumulation and then compacting that down is not going to be accounted for here. So when I tell you that 2 to 4 inches is what would happen on this model run, this obviously looks like it goes against it, but this is not accounting for that sleet coming down for hours after you get heavy snowfall here that this model actually shows. So that's why we're getting a little bit of inflated numbers versus what I was just telling you guys. With all that being said, let's take a look at the temperatures real quickly. Looks like I'm at the end of the model run, and actually I haven't refreshed it, so let's look at today's real quick. And what we see is very, very brutal cold air moving in for this week. I've been calling for this for so long, but we see Tuesday, Wednesday here, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even Monday, Tuesday look a little cold, and then the warmth starts to spread into the east, but we get a very drastic cold blast for the March 1st, March 2nd time frame. And then we try to get that southeast ridge going, but all the way through March 5th, it looks like cold air is trying to spread through the east here. I don't know why that was so small, but through the east here, really trying to spread in. So again, we're trending colder. And the GFS model I'm going to have to refresh as well. Let's take a look at this. We're still on the 10-day like we were looking at yesterday. Here we go. So as we can see, very cold air for the coming days through the end of the week. There's Monday, Tuesday. We warm up, but there comes another cold blast, and this one's a lot more extreme on this GFS model for the 28th, 29th into the first, or not 29th, 28th straight into the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and it looks like maybe another one is just itching to move back down into the east again. So these models, every single day I look at them, look colder and colder for the end of February, early March timeframe. I'm hoping for warmth. I'm ready for spring at this point, especially after this snowstorm that I get tomorrow, but the weather looks like it might have other plans. With all that being said, be sure to subscribe. I upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.